There were some kids who would go like, you know, shouldn't I not be able to get my art credit because they're not in my class? Their friends were in my class. As long as they weren't stopping the kid from doing art, I would go ahead, sit with your friends, or some of them would want to make something because they didn't have art till the next semester, so they would stand at the back counter and they'd paint and do whatever. So I just let the door stay open, and then that would spill over into my prep period or the lunch periods, and I'd let them eat and just do their thing. Well, that was fun. It was fun. And I think it was good for them. You know, they had a safe place. You are what you consume. Popular culture, the things you watch, read. You could almost say that's the big exit after a lifetime of consumption. This one is called The Gardener, and there's all kinds of phallic symbols in there with the water can and the bucket and the open doorway. And I'm using the golden mean, one of my more complete paintings. And I've been trying to paint the nude properly in the way of the old masters, and I was just trying to get the lighting right and the color right and the skin, the varying cool and warm skin tones. And I haven't been able to show it yet. I've always been told if you put a nude in it, you're never going to sell anything. And that makes me angry because I just want to paint beautiful things. Velázquez is known for having broke the fourth wall, and the one guy notices the shoulder of the other guy, and the other guy just in that split second notices that you're there too. And people always ask me why there's dogs in the picture. Like, why do you always paint chihuahuas? And I go, well, that's my spirit animal. Comedy, tragedy, sex and death, beauty and ugliness. Those dichotomies usually find their way into my work. So when I try and put myself in or an avatar of myself, it's usually the Chihuahua. Yeah, and this one was my first banquet painting in it, and it's about you are what you eat. Everybody consuming, and all the choices I make of books I read, everything I watch on TV, the toys I played with as a kid, comic books I like to read, everything's in there. So I've got like Breakfast at Tiffany's and Wizard of Oz and Mobius, one of my favorite graphic novel artists. Pokemon characters, because my kids like Pokemon. They were collecting cards at the time, so they were really happy I put them in there. And believe it or not, the beautiful redhead in the picture, that's a photo I found of Gottfried Helnwein's daughter, and he's a very amazing artist and illustrator, and I thought I'd pay homage to how much I like his stuff, by putting her in it. So I hope he's not upset by that, because to do so that the shadows and the lighting all work out.
That's so interesting. Like I know it from like I always pay attention to lighting when I'm looking at videos and stuff like that. But just to see that and like paying attention to that while you're painting, like that's
Yeah, and then sometimes the title comes last for me, so I'm looking at this and I'm wondering what the heck was I doing. Yeah, and so then I just thought, okay, I'll title it Islands, because everybody's sort of in their own focused space, and that's what tied it together. But I had no idea when I was putting everything in, right?
that is so like it's interesting how the mind works. How you had that in the
And you don't realize that you did it. Like, I didn't realize. I'm going, oh yeah, they're all looking at something. They're all preoccupied with something other than what's around them. And I thought, okay, so now I know what the picture's about, but I didn't realize it when I was putting it together. Because it sometimes looks more interesting than what I put on the canvas. Because it looks this interesting as my palette while I'm painting these things. It kind of mocks me that I have to make something that's a little prettier than my palette, because sometimes it's pretty challenging because it looks amazing, right? But put that on the wall. And then like I was telling you, I peel it off. It all comes off this dollar store plastic palette. All this stuff will come off, but I don't take it off until I've officially put my signature on the bottom right corner of the painting, and then start fresh on the next one. his late work sort of freaks me out a little bit. Because I'm always a little bit worried about empty spaces.
What does he do with Legler? Besides like.
Well, he's a Baroque artist. He used dramatic lighting to help tell the story. Yeah, it almost vies for more attention than actually what's going on down there.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
And then once you notice it, you're kind of going, the top half of the painting, this is interesting.
You also
It's the
you wonder
bottom
like
half.
if that was a room he was in. Just like, I love how that the lights in that window are fused.
Yeah. Exactly. It's endlessly fascinating. And then I know there's that whole thing we were talking about AI, and whether it's going to have the same kind of life or feel that when people do stuff. You see how the colors, if you were only to take this band right here.
Yeah, and you're trying to.
And you're going, and it goes kind of bluey green, and then purpley pink, and then. But how do you suggest the movement through just color and shade and intensity of color across a band like that, so that you know there's buttock and hip and then swell of the belly, and just do it by modulating color. That takes. That when you look at Rembrandt or you look at Vermeer, it's like, how do they do that? It's just incredible. And you could spend a whole lifetime trying to figure out how to mix the right colors and to create volume.
Yep, I'm gonna clip in.
I was a teacher at a high school for 30 years. I taught visual arts, photography, and English, and had enjoyed every minute of it. Especially the fact that I was allowed to have my own room, and once the door is closed and you've got your classroom, it's just you and the kids, and they're making stuff, and you're helping them, trying to discover who they are. And I loved every second of that. I have a loving wife. We've been married for 13 years now. I've got two 10-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, with them, and it's been a lovely second chance, because my first marriage was very difficult. I have two beautiful children from that marriage, and I'm actually a grandfather as of June of this year, so that's fantastic. I have a cute little baby girl as a granddaughter, so I feel really blessed. And now that I'm retired, and I love focusing my time on my kids, and then I work on finally having a chance to work on my art, so which I've been working very hard at the last few years. Around the time when COVID hit, my wife and I had to make some tough decisions. The end of my first marriage, you get a difficult deal sometimes, like I did. We were struggling. We had the young twins, and I was working full time, doing that plus summer school and night school. But when the twins came along, it was too difficult for my wife to be with the kids for that long. But even with all those jobs, believe it or not, with what the courts awarded to my ex, I was actually going into the red every month, even with all the work I did. We were having to ask my dad, for grocery money and for help. And when you're a professional working for 30 years, and you're having to ask your 85-year-old father for money to get groceries or diapers or things, it becomes really depressing. And so we had to figure things out. We have a bit more breathing space now, but I am still committed to going forward with my art and with my paintings. Is this being filmed? No.
Get out here.
Yeah. So, like I said, my 3,700 pension is 1,300.
Yeah.
Because of all the stuff with the courts. So I have to somehow. I can't make up the $2,000 or the 2,500 or whatever that's being taken from me. But I was never able to. During my first marriage, I was never able to do my artwork. I never had time. It was always about things my ex wanted or needed, so I always had to pick up extra jobs, put my artwork aside. Claudette's very, very supportive, and I was actually, for the first time in 25 years, was able to, you know, find time to paint and be allowed to paint. It sounds strange to use that word, but you know, to have a supportive person like Claudette, it was fantastic. I've always made sure that my painting never took food off the table, and that it never takes time away from my family. So I paint when everybody's asleep. So I just, you know, drink a couple extra cups of coffee a day, but I paint from like 10:30 till 1:30 in the morning. Yeah, so I made a pact with myself that I would never allow my artwork to either financially jeopardize my wife and kids or take time away from them. It's almost like the little elves in the shoemaker shop. You know, they'll come down and see wow, when did you do that? And it's like, you know, a painting slowly happens when nobody's looking, because they're all asleep and I'm painting, you know, at midnight. Well, I've been lucky enough that the occasional sale will cover my materials. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into making an artwork. Obviously, there's the planning, and then there's actually the executing. And a painting like this takes, you know, upward of 100 hours, or maybe, depending on how much detail, sometimes 150 hours or more to paint. You have to buy the materials. I go through a lot of brushes. I mean, the painting, this is a 4-foot by 5-foot painting, and I use very small paint brushes, you know, smaller than this one, and they wear out. So I'm always buying new brushes. You need to replenish your paint supply. You wait for there to be sales and things like that. And then, of course, if it's a public gallery, they take 30% of the proceeds. If it's a commercial gallery that would sell your work, they take 50%. So you can see that you know, selling 1 or 2 paintings a year doesn't really go very far. And you know, you need to be able to get out there and get a name for yourself, so that, you know, a commercial gallery will try and, you know, push your work, so that even though they take 50%, that you sell of enough volume that you can make a living. And I'm nowhere near that. I came into it, as I said, late. I was like 50 years old when I was finally given the space to be able to pursue my dream of, you know, just making what I'm hoping is important work. And that takes an artist a long time as well. You go to university, you learn your craft, but when you are done, what is it you're going to paint? And, you know, for a while, your work might look like other people's work, and it's, you know, I was very fortunate with Claudette giving me the space to think and work, that I found myself. You know, some people never find themselves. I managed to find myself at the age of 50. So I feel grateful for that. And but it means, you know, when some artists who had the grace to be able to hit the ground running at 25, and they figure themselves out at 30, they have a lot longer in the game. And me, I'm a late runner, a late bloomer, and so, you know, all the ideas I have, you know, I'm pushing 60, and I hope to have another 25 years to do my work. And I look at artists I love, like Monet, who did his best work in his 80s. So I'm hoping that I'm blessed enough to live long enough to see where this goes. And I found a process that works for me, and I love being able to let my brain free rein and pursue the work that I do, which is, I would call it, it's not really surrealism. It's more like maybe cinematic Dada, where I use my unconscious and I put images together, not knowing 100% what it is that I'm doing. But in the end, so far, interesting things have spilled out of my head. And if I make 10 or 20 paintings, I'll set them up in the basement here, and I'll look at them, and sometimes I can figure out months after what it was that, that I was tapping into. Sometimes it's something real in my life, and I go, wow, that was about that. I had no idea at the time. So I find it a lot of fun. It's almost like the canvas is my psychiatrist, where instead of me being on a couch, I'm projecting my unconscious onto the canvas, and then interesting things happen for me. And a lot of the things relate to popular culture, the history of art, archetypes, things that you've seen in cinema, how various movie directors have dealt with those archetypes, or books, novels that I've read, personal history, the history of my family, who lived through 2 world wars in Europe, and so I pull on all these stories, and a lot of things fascinate me, and I try and put them consciously and unconsciously into my work, and hope that if I'm true to myself, that they will resonate for someone else who looks at them. And then if that happens, then that you've made artwork that will last the test of time, because if someone else can key into it, then you've done something. I wouldn't be making the art that I should be making.
That's such a beautiful realization to have.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Just to come behind you there.
Because you get stuck. You judge yourself. If I put a nude in the picture, nobody's gonna. I had a gallerist say,
Don't tell me. Chill with the nudes.
No, I see you have some. I see you have some nudes. You're never going to sell those in Canada, and it's like there's a couple of New York artists like Lisa Yuskavage, and she does very erotic work. But I mean, she made a point. There's going to be blowback. You just have to deal with it. She said, I knew people were going to yell at me for painting this stuff, but I have to paint it anyway, and she did. You just have to do what you feel is right. But even to get to that point, you think you're alone in the studio, but there's all these little voices talking to you in the back of your mind. Should I, shouldn't I? And then, it's not until you get a lot older and you realize that there's only so many sunrises. I was just very happy that she bought me a Martin Street Master.
That's a beautiful guitar.
I know.
So you're a musician as well?
I am a musician as well. I like to think that I'm musical.
Oh, for sure.
I like to play the guitar and the piano and sing and the harmonica. And then I bought my kids a really nice ukulele because their hands are small. So I'm hoping that they graduate into wanting to learn the piano and then to guitar and all that.
I love that.
But I was shy as a kid.
I'm the same way. I never liked to play in front of people. I still don't like to play in front of people.
Yeah, I was really shy, and that is too bad, because then it reminded me of that lovely song by the Smiths. Shine. The shyness is nice.
Yeah.
That's that song.
Oh, for sure.
but it stops you from doing the things that in life that you'd like to, right?
Oh, that's
That was such a good song. But yeah, so the performing arts were not. I would do that behind closed doors.
what I like about recording studios, sometimes you do it.
Well, and it's funny, writers and poets and painters, they perform in a room by themselves.
Yeah, it's so true.
But we have the illusion. We like to think that we're not affected by, because we're in a room, that we're not affected by the public but we are, even with all the preconceived notions, like, you should be completely free in the studio. But it wasn't until I hit 50 and realized that if I don't do things totally for me and not worry about how it falls, that I wouldn't be making the art that I should be making. If I keep listening to the voices, am I going to sit in a nursing home someday and say, man, why didn't I ever paint that? Because I always wanted to paint that thing. And then, or like when I was in university studying art history, it's like, I love Caravaggio, I love Francis Bacon, but I'm not painting. Why am I not, if I love all this work with figures, why am I not painting those? Why am I painting like Adirondack chairs looking out on a Muskoka lake? Like, that's not what I am. Do you know what I mean? And then, but you have to realize, I think you hit about 50. I'm 59 now, but you hit around 50 and you kind of go, well, if I don't paint what I want to paint, I'm going to run out of days. What do you like the sleeping fat guy?
With the cake. I'm obviously obsessed with the cake, but that's just
that guy. So Banquet I painted first, and then I've been doing things in like mini series of 2. The guy with the cake is Banquet 2. That came second. Yeah, I spent a long time on that shirt. It's like now I could probably paint the Sahara Desert, because when you look at it, everything. It's like, or I could be George O'Keeffe now, and I can do it.
What led you to become an artist?
That's probably a pretty easy one to answer. My grandfather was an artist, and he always had all these stories. His whole house was covered with his art, and my grandparents' upstairs bedroom had all the little watercolors that he did in Italy when he graduated, because I think in art school in Germany at the time, it was in Hamburg, like we're talking 1920, they had to do a Wanderschaft, which was, you plied your trade after you graduated, and he and his brother walked all the way from Hamburg down to Sicily. And, they slept in the woods or slept in a vineyard, or, they would just do a little bit of work and then carry on with their knapsack on their back and hitchhike a bit, or they pretty much walked all the way down through the Alps. And he had all these little watercolors, and he would tell me stories of, that year and a half or whatever, where he and his brother just lived like bohemians. And we went out sketching a few times, and I kind of learned how to paint by copying his watercolors, and it just sort of went from there. But when I was in high school, I took all the science classes. I only took art, I think, starting in grade 11 or in grade 12. I think biology especially, I was going to go into biology, and I would tell the kids at school who didn't want to go to biology, I said, that should be the most interesting class in the whole school, because what's more interesting than the earth and animals and people and how they work? When Dad was a kid, they grew up, there was no electricity, no refrigeration. They buried their root vegetables like in straw and dirt, and then like as the winter progressed, you just would dig out and, here's the beets and carrots and things like that. They had, a fruit cellar in the basement where there'd be huge vats of, cabbage floating in, salted water, and you just peel some leaves off. That's how they grew up. So they would have known nothing about any of that stuff. And then My dad was disappointed because he was hoping I'd go into science or engineering. But when I said to him, after taking all those calculus and algebra and physics, chemistry, and then I go, no, I'm going to go to take art at university. But he supported it, so I was,
Like, do you think he saw your work and was like, he might be onto something?
Yes, I think he saw that. I think he just wanted my sister and I to be happy. Now, it's tough being children of immigrants because all of those jobs that make money, like doctor, pharmacist, engineering, right? So there was probably that impetus behind him, and he just managed to just not say it. And I remember he would when he did work around the house, he'd be mowing the lawn in old dress shoes that were not good enough for work anymore. But he always and he had like a blue U of T engineering jacket, but he never finished his engineering degree, and he ended up going into working as a civil servant for the government. And later, when I was a kid, he got a degree in sociology in night school at York. So I think because he probably felt that immigrant thing, because his dad was a farmer, but then was a contract carpenter when he came to Canada, and he probably wanted his son to, so there's that dusty old civil engineering jacket that he mowed the lawn with. That's as far as he got. So maybe that was why when I said I wanted to be an artist, that he just, let me do it. I always liked the early Renaissance because I found a lot of those artists, they're just was a little bit creepier, I think. If you look at and especially when they were doing, especially the Northern Renaissance, like Jan van Eyck, when they were doing all those details, and they just hit upon something with that. So that was early, and then German Expressionism and Surrealism and Dada came later, and eccentric artists like Francis Bacon. They became later heroes of mine when you start studying more and you take contemporary art. These days, I thought the people that are the most free, it seems to be that lowbrow / pop surrealist movement in California. They just seem to be able to paint whatever they want, and they're doing okay. So I envy them that, and I like some of the quirky things they do, and sometimes stuff pops in. I'm not a purist. Again, I find the beautiful sculptural qualities and work like, I love Mobius, Jean Girard, and I think he influenced people like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. You wouldn't have Star Wars in the desert if it wasn't for Mobius. And then Frank Whiteley is this Scottish Glaswegian superhero comic artist, and I've included some of his figurines of Robin in my work, and I mean that's Batwoman from like the 70s, I think. And then there's a manga guy, and that's a Mobius on the right, Jimi Hendrix in some kind of weird space cafe. I had fun with that piece because the idea was consumption. We consume not only food but popular culture, and we are, the idea that you are what you eat, and everything you read, see, people you're with, and all become who you are. And so I thought, what if I put a huge spread of stuff on the table that represented, what the guy was into.
The dead birds.
Yeah, the dead birds. Yeah, that came from, because it started out, I don't know if you've seen those Dutch still lifes. There'd be a huge painting, and it'd be a horn of plenty, and there'd be that cornucopia with tons of produce coming out of it, and then there'd be dead rabbits and pheasants and huge sea, like gigantic halibut and the dead deer, and so it started out okay. I kind of get that they were a hyper Protestant country, so you couldn't show vanity, you couldn't show how proud you were and how wealthy you were, but you did it. So you'd come to somebody's house and they have this huge painting with. So if you can paint it, or if you can own a painting that has all that, you're telling your neighbor that you could afford to eat anything you wanted all the time. I don't politicize. I just let it kind of take me places, and it's not really being critical of him either. He looks quite happy and content sitting there, sleeping, dozing, but they're just open for interpretation. So I'll find something I'm interested in, and then I'll kind of let my mind go for a walk. And so I heard most people in an art gallery, they'll look at a picture for about 2 seconds. And I find the trends now in the sort of decorative, non-objective art, they're really well done. They look great on a wall, but they're almost instantly forgotten, like the person's sofa. They come in, they look. But when you see Caravaggios that aren't in a museum, that are still up in the churches, the church could be all Baroque, ostentatious with gold and cherubs and everything going on. And then his paintings are there and they like blow right out of the wall. They just don't seem comfortable in that. They just like punch you in the face, right? And I always thought, well, art should be like that. Well, I mean, I understand there's art about beauty. I go to the Orangerie and see Monet's water lilies and see that ephemeral beauty painted by an old man who knew his days were numbered. That hits you too. But I think art today, people don't want to be. They don't want to be slammed.
You find yourself attracted to
artists that punch you in the face, yes. Yeah, I do.
Do you want to punch people in the face? I had to just.
Can we get that sound like you just say,
I just want to punch people in the face. Yeah, no, I don't want them to take just 2 seconds and walk by.
So I have a big question for you.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the beautiful artwork that you make, and I'm just, why aren't you in the news? Why aren't you,
Well, I don't know.
Everywhere, because this stuff is incredible.
I think there's probably a lot of artists in the same boat. I also a late bloomer, right? So between when my first daughter was born 36 years ago and when I was able to finally focus on my art, after my divorce and finding Claudette and taking, so I really, what you see here I've built since I turned 50. So it's like
only been this past decade, so to speak.
So I've been, and I, having newborn twins, again at 50 years of age was something. But I managed to do all this while not getting any sleep, drinking lots of coffee, raising with Claudette, our two twin boy and girl.
Produced
Yeah,
last couple years?
Yeah, maybe 6 or 7, but for sure.
Just because I've been watching for say 2-3 years from a distance, and it looked to me like the frequency, and I couldn't understand how you were getting these out. It seemed to me like you were getting these out.
Yeah, well, they take maybe you figure between 75 and 150 hours. So, I mean, that's a lot of late nights, but they get done. The whole thing is to always
the consistency.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're just well, that's what I'm trying to get.
You can't wait till you're inspired. You have to if it's a glass of red wine, that'll get you down into the basement, or if it's a
Yeah.
double espresso, you gotta go, instead of just going, I'm tired, I'm gonna watch something on Netflix. You gotta,
Man, you're getting your
you
reps in every
you
night.
gotta go. Yeah, you have to make it a. So those people who go, yeah, I will only paint when I'm inspired. No, you can't. You can't do that. But once you get your ass downstairs and half that coffee, you start going through the motions, and then all of a sudden, you're not going through the motions, right? You will eventually get into that groove if you make yourself go down. And probably if you talk to any artist or musician or whatever, that's what has to happen. I'm sure, like, rock musicians, they don't feel like it all the time, but they'll go and start playing, whether they just start with scales or whether they got to sometimes make themselves go into the studio and make themselves go through tedium for a bit, and the tedium will eventually lead you into, the promised land. It'll lead you into where you want to be. But you can't wait for it to come. You gotta sort of kick yourself into it coming.
What happens with all this beautiful work you're doing? Where do you want to take it? What do you want to do with it?
I would like some, I would like some big show in a public gallery where I could have 20 or 30 of the pieces, so people could see it all around. I mean,
Because ultimately, like any artist out there, is for
wants
people to be able
that.
to enjoy and
Yes.
experience what
And-
you've codified.
And we also need the work to be sold. We need some work because we have to be able to, like, I also made Claudette aware that, art supplies are never going to come before, children's clothing or anything like that. So if the work's not selling, like right now, I can sell just enough so that it helps a little bit with the family, but that I can pay for materials.
But if all of these things just weren't there, and you could just speak into existence, what the next 10 years looks like for you as you enter this.
Like a wish fulfillment thing?
Yeah.
Well, heck, I would like to represent Canada at the Venice Biennale. Wouldn't that be awesome? I have my work in Venice and then take my family there. And I haven't been in. The last time I was in Venice, I had hair. I think I was 23. So it'd be nice to go there with my artwork and my kids and my wife, and that would be great. Will that ever happen? I don't know. Probably not. But I can dream. I can dream and keep painting, and whatever happens, I would keep painting anyway, because you can't not. I mean, I'm not saying it's an illness, but an artist cannot not do, or they will become very ill. So
All work and no play.
so you
Jack dull boy.
yeah.
All right, this won't be on camera. Dude, do you ever look at your shit? Do you ever look at it? Do you ever be like, yo, I'm good at this?
Yeah.
Like, I won't put this up there. Can you just look me in my eyes and tell me you're a fucking legendary? Can you just?
Well,
admit it? Do you know? Do you realize? Like, do you know that you're
Well, when I
producing
got-
insane shit?
Well, when I painted that nude that I haven't been able to show anywhere yet,
Right.
and I painted her hands, and then
Hands, man.
yeah, and the shadow across her toes there, and I thought, okay, I thought I can paint that now. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I get excited.
You could say life is an impossible situation. I mean, and there's wonderful moments and there's very sad moments, and you just try and cling on to the wonderful ones as long as you can.